Alrighty, folks, welcome back to Adobe Live. How's everybody doing this morning? My name is Voodoo Val, and I am going to be your host again for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. And I'm super excited about this round of classes. As I mentioned yesterday, if any of you folks were tuned in for the intro stream for this round of challenges, I am issuing not just a daily creative challenge, but a personal challenge for all of you creatives out there that can be extended past this 2 weeks, past this month, even maybe past this year, to create your own case study. Of your very own original series on Behance. So not only are we going to be walking through kind of making content and stuff for the next few weeks, but we are also going to be actually designing and putting together our case studies for our projects. We're going to be going through not only creating the case studies, but also kind of freshening up our profiles for the new year because it is 2021 now. And today is kind of a reflection of that. For the start of the new year, we are going to kind of kick things off with a bang and make sure that we have a nice, fancy new profile picture, which I think is really great because we want to make sure that we have like kind of a cool first new project for the new year. But what we also want to do is make sure that it's not just a brand new project that people can see in our portfolio for 2021. We also want to kind of revamp a little bit and spice up our presence online with the new year. So the first thing that I'd love to go over, number one, is if you are over on the YouTube channel, please come over to behance.net/live because that is where I'm going to be reading the chat. There are so many familiar faces in here this morning, and I am very excited. Steve Fess is Val is not logged into chat. I can see your messages, though I may not be logged in. Emma, it's good to see you. Sean, Robert, happy colorful new year to you as well, Robert. It's good to see you. Biola, welcome in, my friend. I see Subin and Thess and Ferry and Murray and Cheryl. It is wonderful to have you all here. We're going to dive into some of the finer points of the challenge landing page where all of you folks can get the information that you need in order to join in with me for today. And then we're going to dive into the project itself before we run out of time. So if you come over to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, as I said, you'll get basically a little title page here that says Daily Creative Challenge. You'll know that you're in the right place because it'll have the Photoshop icon. And if you're not watching a replay of these, you know, forward in the future, the January 4th and 15th will be easy to spot because it'll be your current time frame, and you'll know you're in the right place. If you are looking for a different challenge, you can also scroll down here and check out these other dates, and go through there, get all of these starter files, and watch all of the archived videos for these challenges from the past. But otherwise, you will have a 1 through 4 of how does it work here at the top that will explain to you basically that every single morning we are going to be unlocking a challenge for you folks at about 8 a.m. Pacific time. And the first one here is already available to you. It says personalized avatar, as I stated, polish a selfie with retouching tools in Lightroom alongside neural filters in Photoshop. So we're going to be kind of doing a dual app project here today. And if you need to come back and rewatch the video, this button right here will actually lead you to this archived video. And to get started with me, go ahead and click this button because that is where you're going to get the starter files that I have prepared for you. So I am going to quickly drag my window over here and show you what the starter file looks like. You will get this file. It says challenge 1. It has a brief summary of what the challenge is by, and then I've actually chosen a image for you by Alex Ilby on Unsplash, and I've given you the image link here. I didn't want to download it and throw it in there. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to go there and check out the image yourselves. So that you can give this artist a shout out and give them some props for their wonderful work. And this is what that image looks like if you follow that link. You'll get this neat picture of this guy. It's got some kind of cool lighting effects here. But what I really liked about this image was that it had like kind of cool glasses on his face. And when it comes to taking a selfie real quick, sometimes for me personally, I don't have a lot of selfies on social media. I don't take a lot of pictures of myself. But I thought that this would be kind of an interesting idea if anyone wanted to just throw some glasses on and take a picture of their face, that they could create a pretty cool image like what we're going to do today. So I'm going to use him as an example, and I hope that you will follow along with me. So the first thing I did with this image is I actually opened it up in Lightroom. So I have my Lightroom opened here. If you jump into Lightroom for the very first time and you're wondering what the heck is going on, where is everything, over on this left-hand side, you'll see that we have the little photos panel. And when you open this panel, you can actually scroll down here and you can see all of the photos on your computer, kind of sorted by date, people, connections, and maybe images that you have deleted. You can go to the Learn, you can go to Discover, which I actually highly recommend if you'd like to follow around with some tutorials, which are really great. And then you can also check out your albums, which is very, very helpful. As you can see, I have an album here that I have created just by pressing this plus button right here. And I've named it January Daily Creative Challenge 2021. And then I've just drag and drop my image into it that I'm going to be using for today. I'm going to go ahead and close this panel, and then I'm going to come over here to my right hand side, and I'm actually going to click the edit button. There's a bunch of really wonderful tools that you can use to transform your images in Lightroom over here in these panels. But what we're going to focus on today is actually changing this image to be more of a green tone. Why green? Because that's just what I'm going to go for this morning. For you, you guys can choose whatever you like to do because you're going to either be working on a selfie of your own, or maybe you're working with this same image for practice before you choose a selfie of yourself or someone else, and you'd like to do something different than me. Whichever you choose, it's a-okay, and you can basically follow along with whatever I do, even if you'd like to transform your file differently from mine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the light settings, and I'm going to noodle around with these. Now, I kind of know already that I would like to change the contrast. I'm not going to bump it up too crazy. I just kind of like making it a little crispier, like so. And you can choose to change the exposure however you like, and change the whites and the blacks and whatever you want to do, whatever's right for your image. I'm going to actually click here because I want to revert all these back to 0. And I am going to change these back because I'm just going to leave my contrast changed because that's good enough for me. And then I'm going to close my light. Another way that you can actually kind of get a cleaner, I guess, that crispy effect that I'm talking about, is if you come into effects, you can also crank up the dehaze, which is interesting. You guys know me, I'm more of an illustrator and painter, but this has been really helpful for me because sometimes I have these photos where I'm just like, what is all this in my image? I want it to be clean, I want it to be crisp, and dehaze, it kind of works like magic for that, honestly. So I'm going to crank up the dehaze just a little bit. I don't want it to be too dark, so maybe I'll come back here to light and push the highlights a little bit. Possibly. We'll see. Maybe a little bit. Maybe I'll bring down my shadows. No, I don't want to bring down my shadows. I think that is probably good for me right there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to mess with the color. There's a lot of really awesome color settings in here, which is really great. I could, let's see, if I want to make everything like kind of a green tone, maybe I will actually, in the color mixer settings here, maybe I will select that, and maybe I'll start to kind of bring, like kind of pull that red out, honestly. I don't want it too crazy. I think that's probably good. I've like sucked most of that bright red out there. And then maybe I can come in with greens and sort of saturate these greens. Let's see if I can transform that a little bit. Maybe I'll come over here, maybe I'll tint it. Ah, there we go. Okay, now we're getting into kind of what I want. I realize maybe this color choice also might not be ideal for a lot of different projects. I'm just trying to transform this image drastically so you can see how easy it is to really push the boundaries of an image. But if you are not really a fan of green, that is totally fine. You can choose whichever color you want. And you can also choose to edit only certain portions of this project as well. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. I think I'm gonna leave this like that. I realize that's like pretty crazy, but that's fine because we do have limited amount of time for these classes, and I would like to show you my next step, which is actually kind of exciting. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is I want to start editing different portions of this image. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to come into, that actually looks really cool. I kind of added some of that red in there and changed everything else to green. That's neat. I'd like to edit only certain portions of this image. For instance, I'd like to come in and replace his glasses lenses with something more interesting. So I'm going to go actually up to File, and instead of doing Export, I'm just going to click Edit in Photoshop. And then it's actually going to pull this up in Photoshop with all of my changes, which is really swell. And I'm going to be able to kind of dive in with neural filters and go for it. So I'm going to unlock this layer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of zoom in here because I want to change what's on his lenses. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can come in with your lasso tool if you prefer, which is honestly the way that I usually default because I am an illustrator and it feels better just to use my stylus and kind of have at it. But if you are not an illustrator, you can come in with the magnetic lasso tool if you like. You can actually go into the, let's see, probably the magic wand tool would work here. And then you can also select and mask, and you can come in and you can select areas with your cursor here in the selected mask. I'm not going to use all of the more detailed tools because, as I said, I'm more comfortable with just using my lasso tool, which I'm going to go ahead and do. But feel free to choose any selection tool that you see fit. And if you don't see some of the tools that I've described just now, all you have to do is look for one of them here in this panel and right click it with your stylus or with your mouse. And then it will open up the panel that will allow you to select which of the lassos you would like to use or which of these selection tools you would like to use at your own discretion. I'm going to use the regular lasso, and I am just going to really quickly and cleanly just start selecting portions of these glasses. One thing that I am doing, just in case any of you folks are using the lasso tool, is I am holding shift right now. Why am I holding shift? Because as I start to add portions of this selection together, I want to make sure that I'm adding to the selection and I'm not starting a brand new selection. I want to make sure that this is all coming together the way that I want. And it's honestly, in my experience, it's one of the easiest ways to use the lasso tool or use any selection tool because not all of us are able to use a stylus, or not all of us are very smooth with our mouse. And so instead of just going at it and selecting a particular shape, a very specific shape right off the bat, one of the things that we can do is just select more palatable shapes and sizes of our selection very quickly and add to it as we go so that everything is a lot more smooth. So there we go. That's how I do it. And I do have some things kind of stuck around the edges there, but that's okay. I think that this will work for us for now. I can hold Alt, and you can see it changes the cursor, so you have that little subtraction sign instead of the plus sign that's there when I am holding shift. So I can hold Alt and actually subtract from my selection as well, which is also very useful. When you import the file from Lightroom to Photoshop, make sure it's the right format. Last year I had all sorts of trouble because it wasn't RGB or something like that. Yeah, I would say that's another thing that you can look into is checking like if it's an RGB or if it's in CMYK. I always work in RGB, even though I print. I know that there's some artists out there who might find that insane, just wild insanity that I am not. I'm not switching to CMYK whenever I print prints and posters and things, but that's just how I've always done it, mostly because I don't like to paint pictures in CMYK, and I don't always like what things look like once I basically transfer them over to CMYK. So I have all of my stuff, even like the default for all of my brand new files is RGB, but you can always check that, yes. Lasso tool skills, I'm trying, Bruce, I'm trying. Let me also scroll through and make sure that I am not missing any questions. Clarissa, Val skill is quite impressive. Well, thank you, Clarissa. I appreciate you. I only recently started using Bridge to clean up messes I made, and it's all sorts of epic. Bridge is amazing. Neural filters again, yes, RB. We've done a few different challenges with neural filters, and they're a lot of fun. But this is what I am going to do, and I want to highlight things within the neural filters settings that are very important. So there's a lot of ways I can go about this. I could. Basically duplicate these lenses, or I could duplicate this whole layer and then mask these lenses. What I'm going to do is now that I have my selection, I'm just going to hit Control J, which is duplicate whatever's in that selection. Well, I take it back. Control J is duplicate. So if I don't have anything selected, for instance, I can say Control J and it will duplicate the entire layer, unless of course I have something selected, at which point it duplicates only what is in that selection. So something to watch out for is if you have something selected, but perhaps you've hit Control H. Control H is actually, let me do that one more time because I hit the wrong button. Control H is actually a way that you can hide your selection, or hide any guides, hide any wireframing things from the free transform options, for example. But hiding it, if I select my brush, hiding it does not actually mean that it is gone. You just can't see it, so it's a little less distracting. It's something that I love to use whenever I am doing very, very intricate selections. So make sure that if you are trying to duplicate something, but for whatever reason, when you hit that Control J, it's only duplicating a portion of your project, make sure to click Control H a couple of times and make sure you're not hiding anything, and then hit deselect just in case you're selected. But now onto our lenses. I'm going to make sure I'm selected onto the layer that has our lenses. I'm going to call this pick, and I'm going to call this glasses, and then I'm going to go to filter and neural filters. And here's where things are going to get fancy. I'm going to be an absolute nerd here. And I'm going to go the matrix route for this because I noticed that the matrix texture is in the neural filters textures and I love it. Another thing to remember when you're working with neural filters is if you come down here to use the style transfer in neural filters and you click it, and you're trying to figure out why in the heck can't I use all of this? Why is everything ghosted out? I did this the very first time I started using neural filters. You have to make sure that this little button right here is toggled on, otherwise you won't be able to use any of these. I know that might be slightly confusing because when you click it, you want to just be able to go in and look at the files, but yes, please make sure that you're not being frustrated over just this simple toggle. It's something that I had to like slow down and breathe and really think about. I was like, why can't I see everything? Why is everything ghosted like so? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, toggle it on. So don't forget to toggle it on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this output is set to what I want. You can output to current layer. You can output to duplicate layer masked. So it's basically a copy of the layer with everything masked. You can duplicate to a new layer or duplicate to a smart filter. I am going to duplicate to a new layer. And then I'm going to hit show more under style right here. And I'm going to scroll all the way down because I know that there's a couple different matrix textures here, which I just think are really cool, which is why I changed everything to green. And I don't know if it's going to match 100% because I did not match them when I selected them, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of, oh yeah, that looks cool. I'm going to go ahead and let it do its thinking. We can test this one out as well. Let's test this one just in case it's cooler. Maybe not. I don't know. Give it a little time to think. With neural filters, it does take a little bit of computing time. Now we're gonna go back to the first one. The first one's the best. And I'm gonna kind of leave it like that. So then now he has, like, he's been changed to green. I've got his lenses all changed up to this fancy matrix-y stuff, and I'm just gonna go ahead and hit OK. And then you'll see that it's outputted a new layer. I'm just going to call this, I'm going to double click my layer and I'm going to call this matrix. Matrix. And I can hide that other layer because I just have now, as you can see, just these nifty lenses that look pretty cool on my guy here. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it. And the way I'm going to crop it is just by either coming over here to the right side and finding or the left side, excuse me, and finding the crop tool, or by hitting C on the keyboard. And one thing I also want to highlight with this is some of you may not use these little images that come up, these little tooltips that come up whenever you're using Photoshop. If you are new to Photoshop, or if maybe you are here doing these challenges because you're trying to scrub up on your skills in maybe different areas of Photoshop that you're unfamiliar with, or just trying to get back into the groove of designing in Photoshop in general, please utilize these tooltips. This is an excellent way to discover the hotkey for all of your favorite tools that you need to use, and memorizing these tools will speed up your workflow exponentially. I cannot say how lucky you all are, because I remember when I first began using Photoshop and I did not have that, and that would have been incredible, because what I had instead was a piece of computer paper posted to the wall next to my monitor with a huge list of like 100 different hotkeys that I had to glance over and like squint and like try and see which one was the brush hotkey. So utilize these tooltips because they're very, very useful. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and crop it there. Some of you may choose to crop a little differently than I have, and that's totally fine. Like I said, we are kind of trucking through, even though in any other time I might have spent a little more and spent a little more time and put a little more effort into transforming the images. We only have less than 30 minutes for these classes, but I hope that this kind of created an interesting route and avenue that you all may take to create a stylized profile picture or avatar for the new year. Because one of the things that we want to do, like I said at the beginning of this challenge, is not only create your first project, or what is probably your first project of the new year, but also to kind of give your Behance profile a bit of a revamp. And so we're starting with the profile pic, because that is one of the very first things people see. People glance over to the right and say, oh, okay, cool, they have a lot of projects. But then what they almost instinctually do every single time is glance over to the left and be like, I wonder what this person looks like, or I wonder who this person is. Who is this designer? And they look directly at your picture. So let's give them something interesting to look at, shall we? I'm super pumped with how this turned out, and I can't wait to see how yours goes. If all of you in the chat are participating in today's challenge, I hope that you will head over to the Discord, which you can get the link for right here at bit.ly/psdiscord. Make sure that P and that S are capitalized in order to jump to the right server. You don't want to jump into a different random server, but please post your work there, because tomorrow I'm going to be pulling up the Discord and checking all of your entries out on the stream, or as many of the entries out on the stream as I possibly can. So post it, let me give you a shout out, let me give you some feedback, because I think it's going to be really fun to kind of look through everyone's selfies tomorrow, everyone's super selfies. Can we call them super selfies? But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been an absolute blast. I can't wait for the next segment coming right up, so please stay tuned for the next broadcast, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Adios, everyone.